welcome to tonight's edition of Through It All with Kola Lugodi. I trust you are all good. Nice to be with you yet again tonight. All right, so my guest tonight is a businessman and a busy man. He has another meeting 9 o'clock, so we are starting right away. He's someone that is very dear to me, very, very wonderful brother. We have come way back, like he said in the copy of his book that he actually sent to me. He said, we have come way back. Idy, good evening. How are you tonight?
I'm very well, Kola. Good evening.
So nice to have you on Through It All. We call on you.
Thank you. It's a privilege. I really am happy to be here. Thank you, Kola.
I know I've been trying to bring you here for almost like a year now.
I apologize.
No, I can understand. I can understand. So getting you this early in the year is, I can't, it's a big thing. Well done, my brother. How are you?
Very well. I'm grateful to God for the gift of life. I'm happy. I'm alive. That's important.
Thank God. You know, through it all, it's all about using our stories to encourage people and to give them hope. And you are a man that have been through it all, you know. And for people joining us, Idy is so special to me because we actually attended the same secondary school. We were roommates. He doesn't say the whole story. Most times when he's introducing me, we say we're schoolmates. But the truth of it was that actually you were my senior. You were a year my senior, Idy. But we are roommates, and of course, it never really showed because you were just a man of the people. You're someone that you mix so easily with everyone. So nice to have you here, my brother.
Thank you. A pleasure.
All right. Now, where do I start your story from now? Let's start. I won't assume everybody knows who Idy Enang is. So let's start with introduction. So who is Idy Enang?
Well, Kola, if I have had the privilege of life thus far and the grace and call of God upon my life, I would really describe myself as a trustee of posterity. And to that extent, that every inch of the pathway I've taken in life has truly been God's anchored way to bring me to a place where I can, of necessity, be able to cast my shadow and let others see what is possible, how they could get better, how they could be at their very best, because I just had to come from what you may consider a very simple and small family setting, with my parents being civil servants, being the head of the pack of that, the children they had, and the responsibility of leadership being cast upon me from a very early age. I'll say I have 3 junior ones, and the average age difference between all 3 and myself is about 7. So they all call me, my younger ones call me Big Bros. They don't, their kids call me Uncle Big Bros. So
Big Bros.
You, except otherwise, you are around us, you'll be hearing of Big Bros, you'll be wondering who is Uncle Big Bros, and there's one of Big Bros, because relatively, I really spend a lot more time with them, and I do not, that barrier of age and being my children, quote and unquote, does not come through. And that has also helped me through my career. I've had the privilege of working for great organizations. I've had the privilege of mentoring quite a sizable chunk of people. And God has been very faithful, because I think the only way I can describe myself will be the pathway that I've been able to mirror to others to follow, and being very open and honest with myself. Now, in all of this, I'm very much man, like my father in the faith and pastor will say, the best of man is still man at his very best. I'm just absolutely very infallible. I've made mistakes, and I learn from those mistakes. But from a standpoint of principles, I try to keep myself within principles, and those principles remain what has kept me. So I'm here. I'm a product of God's grace, and everything and every line I want to take from here will be, maybe I'll end at this note by saying that I was born as a little boy, as an infant, I became a boy. Later, I grew to be a lad, and now I'm a grown man. By the grace of God, I will fulfill destiny, and if and when the time comes, I want to die as an institution, so that people would always say there was a certain man that I wasn't just randomly, I didn't come in randomly, but I want to be able to live and be able to say my life was worth, and even after, an institution for others to learn from. So that's where I'll describe myself, Kola. Every other thing in between. Baba God, no idea.
No, I love the way you said that. At the end of the day, no matter what man becomes, man is still man. And this is your book, In the Grip of Grace. Actually, the book gripped me, my brother. And I was wowed with your achievements in life corporately and the way God has taken you. And that's like one of those things that caught my heart, that made me to say, Idy needs to come here, and really share his story with us, even though we are not going to limit it to your career. But I know the younger ones, the younger generations, and I know you do a lot of work in the midst of the younger generation. They need to hear you. They need to read your book and know that you can come from an humble background and still become something in life. So we're still going to talk about your book before we round off. So I want you to go into your story, Idy. So how was the beginning like?
Now, you're asking for In the Grip of Grace live without live away. I wish I could have a copy here, so I'll be looking at page 1, chapter 1, and all that.
Is your story so?
Kola, I truly, that book was written, it was truly an inspiration from God. And even as I reflect on it, there are so many things that have happened in the course of my life up to that time that are not even recorded. But I trust God that at the appointed time they will be. We'll still always have, replenishment. But if I'm going to talk about my life, I'll look at it from a standpoint of nuggets. But the starting point is even from my birth. And I wasn't there, but I recall from what my parents told me. I was very close to my grandparents, maternal, very extremely close. I practically preferred to stay with my maternal grandparents at that time. And so when I go back with the stories that my grandfather, grandmother, and my dad used to tell me, but what was very instructive was the fact that at the point of my birth, my father came into Lagos at the age of 20. My father had, he was the first son of my grandfather, and my grandfather had 7 wives. And technically speaking, I'm his first son. So if you follow the normal family paternal line, you just know that, the first of the first of the first. So having come from such a background, my father, and with the impact of the Civil War, was quite strenuous, and I'd say my family took it on. My uncles, that's my grandfather's brothers, they all died about the same period, between 68 and 69 during the Civil War. In fact, my grandfather was, from what I hear, it was in the very course of the nick of the battle when the federal forces, the planes were coming over, that he ran out with his last child, running into the farm, that he had a heart attack. He had a heart attack, and then that was how he passed. So my father had to leave, and he had to go. He attended a secondary school, came over to Lagos at the age of 20, and started drawing his brothers here to come have a life in Lagos. And he was just living in a small apartment in Nobi, and later on he got married, met my mom, they got married. Now, the story, because it's about me, I needed to put that background. So you see that my father came in at 20, but 61 years after, he went back home. He'll be 88 in a couple of days, March 2nd. And by the time he got married to my mom, and they had me, they were going to have me, the stories around my birth were it was serious. There was some woman in the compound where they stayed, that just, Maggie, I know her name like yesterday. They said this woman from nowhere just put a hit on my mom and said she would never deliver. She would always come out, and everybody was afraid of her, that this woman is some, from our parts. They would say, this woman is a witch, the Nigerian factor and all of that. From what I hear, just about that time, my parents were very strong Christians. My father they're both, Methodist as well, but and my grandmother, of course. So I think close to the time of my birth, my mom just, my grandmom just went to visit my mom, and there she was. She just looked at her and said, this woman, this is labor coming. And my dad wasn't around. And then she quickly just called the cab, and that's how she got me to the hospital, and, boom, this young man was brought out. And then, boom, next minute, just by the evening, I was done. My mom was done, and they came back home. And so before the woman could say Jack Robinson, she just heard the cry of a baby and all of that. But my father moved out of there straight to Clegg, and from Clegg, he moved to Adenogusa, and then to Samshoni Bare. So basically, I'm a Sulere boy. I was born, Sulere, and you can see from Nobi, Clegg, Samshoni Bare, and then, Adenogusa, and then Samshoni Bare. I think that was the beginning of the entire journey for me. And frankly speaking, I started, went to nursery school, St. Mary's Convent for a year. My dad pushed me to St. Catherine's Model School. I went to St. Catherine's, and from St. Catherine's at Fire Street, I went to Baptist Academy. That was a very interesting transition, because getting to secondary school, then, we used to take on the federal exams, state, and all of that. So for the federal government colleges, my dad wanted me to go back to federal government college, but it was more, he wanted me more to go to Hope Waddell Institute in Calabar. Those days, Hope Waddell was a very, very serious institution. And then, but the more my mom kept telling him, this boy is just, why don't you let him stay closer? And then, of course, the Lagos State exams, I found myself at Baptist Academy. So I didn't go to Hope Waddell again. I now found myself at Baptist Academy. And I think, like our song would say, Savior like a shepherd lead us, was at that point, it was clear that it was just the Spirit of God that was leading that path. Found myself at Baptist Academy, fantastic institution. We're all there. Brought in, all the elements of discipline.
Yeah.
That starting from the body nows, and the fact that you could not just monkey around being who you were not. If I take that with the construct of my parents and my grandparents, is that the principles that one would get embedded in life were fundamentally seated in my life, and that began to keep me in a certain state. There's something I need to also mention. My father had, in the process of taking care of his younger ones, he had more sisters stepsisters and sisters, to take care of. So our house was a beehive of women. So I grew up in the midst of women. And one day I'll still hope I'll be able to write my own book on the women in my life. And so I grew up in love. I grew up women all around, my aunties, my grandmother, my mother. So the capacity to hate does not exist. I cannot tell you I hate this person, God forbid. I'll be able to live with any character. I'll be able to stand and say what I mean and mean what I say. But I just find it very difficult to hate someone. Whatever and however I feel about a person, I'll tell you straight to your face. You may not like it, but I'll tell you. So hate has never been a part of me, but just a part to give, because the average woman that was around me was a giver, was a nurturer. So I'm not surprised today that I have a company called Corporate Shepherds, people, building people, doing all of that. I think a large part of it would have been divine, yes, but inspired a lot more by the women that were in my life. I'm not saying there were no men, there were, but the influence was very serious. And you know how your grandparents, for those that will understand, have really lived with their grandparents, will understand what I'm saying. That became the foundation for me, Kola. And I went through education. Now, this was a very interesting part of my life. By the time I left Baptist Academy, I went to FSS Undo for my A-levels, did 2 years. But FSS, was something else. We were just there to rock. Almost, it was not one. At that time, we had about 2 of us in a room. I remember I was in Niger House, just 2 in a room. Of course, we had uniform, white, but we were very mufti. It was a mini university lifestyle. Cafeteria system with tickets, and of course, boys and girls having fun, partying, and it was a different kind of life. And then Ife was not far. We're all then watching. Ben Bruce, my friend, would come with Silverbird, then will come with Lakeside, all the shows. So we were having fun. I was 5 naira. We would just step out, go to Ife until one of us drank so much one particular time, and it was unfortunate. He passed, and that put paid to all of those things. But I think the critical point was for me to migrate from A-levels and to get into the university. This was where it was tough for me. I got a bit distracted, not just a bit. Number one, in sports, I was very much, I was I was the number one in terms of tennis. I was there, tennis representative Ondo, badminton, and I was in the football team. So if we go for FETSAS games, you'll find me, I was the central defender. Same time, I was the badminton and tennis, a singles player. So how I got to do all of those, I don't know, but it must have been something else. But I think the point of education was that distraction. I got a bit distracted. So I had 3 papers, an F, DEF, I had economics, government, and CRK. I had economics at a D, and I had an E in government. I think CRK was where I had the F or something. But I couldn't go into university. Those days they were very strict. 3 points would not get you a serious single honors. So I decided, what do I do? I went to work as a public servant. I went back into Ministry of Defense, then Officers Pay Office. I was a level 6 officer. I was paid 178 naira every month. My auntie was in MOD. She, I went through I was gazetted and I went in. But while I was there, I learned, funny enough, our office was opposite Baptist Academy. That was where the Officers Pay Office was. Our commandant was a colonel. That was when you had Babangida, Inua Jallo, and Inua Wushishi and GS Jallo. That was when they were CDS, Chief of Army Staff. That was the period, in 83. And I just couldn't cut it. But I think the turning point for me was, if my friends come home and I'll be discussing about work, and they were talking about university. My dad just got mad with me one day and said, "It's just a waste of space." He just said, you're almost a waste of space. And that got to me. And I called a friend of mine, Dewumi Peko, and I said, you know what? I'm tired. I want to go back to school. So we went to Minister of Education, and we just went together, Peko and I. Peko is late now. And we got in there and told the madam, he should get us admission. She said, where are your parents? We said, they're at home. They don't know. We just came together. She now brought out a file. That's when I knew that to be a bad boy is not a good thing. She brought out a file of FSS and those that they had. We didn't know that they used to, because one time they suspended me. I don't want, we suspended us, all of us, most of us. She now looked at it and said, you boys are bad boys. I said, no, we're not bad. Why did you get suspended? We said there was a party. And then, then we used to talk about shifting. We moved the girls from the hostel all the way through. And the back of my hostel was the point where the cars would be parked. And then the Oloders just started blowing the whistle. They caught one or two girls and they were taking them to the principal's house, and we rushed them, seriously. Rescued the girls.
Rushed the Oloders. That's the vigilantes, actually.
We rushed them. There's one notable Nollywood actor, I will not call names. And the lady that they had, one of them, the father was a professor at the University of Ife. And how was she caught? My room was just beside. So she ran in there. We just put her there, covered the sheets, and then we removed what do you call it? From the meter. That's what's it called?
Okay. The cutout or something.
The cutout. We just removed the cutout. Everywhere was pitch dark and they couldn't see anybody. So they had their torches, but somehow they just went inside and saw this lady's hair. And we had to rescue them. We just rescued them and they disappeared. That incident, I didn't go on suspension because we went back into the color. You're making me expose things that were not exposable.
No, but, you see why, Idy, why those stories are important. Who you were then and who God has made you now. You understand? There are times that people always think that now that you're a child of God, you never had any past. You have always been like an holy person, a son of a prophet or a pastor. So it's always good when you share it, because there are some guys still going through what you have gone through then. And they just feel like, no, this is the real life. But you are something that you have tasted every part of life, and now you are in another life, and you can now say, I know the sweetest.
No, I'm fine. I'm very comfortable with all of it. I'm just teasing. Anyway, this is where the juicy part of it. We're suspended, but then we went. When those days, we had a box where they were putting the letters and they'll put a stamp. The postman will carry the letters, they'll now post it. And then to your parents, the letter suspending you would have been sent. You'd have been asked to leave school. So, FSS was such a nice place. I didn't leave school. I couldn't go to class because I was suspended. Not just me and the boys, but we intercepted the letters at the admin block. My father got to know after I'd finished that I was ever suspended in school. He didn't know. We were living there. Now, one night, we were going to eat outside and we're coming back. Mr. Oladele, I remember, was coming back into school and the man was driving his 504 with his lights. I was with the boys. And he now said, he now put out his lights and then he now said, is that not Enang? And the boys said, they called Ola. There's a sign and the name for the teacher, headmaster, housemaster. Then instantly, I just started walking like someone that was, did not have, my legs were not straight, and I was walking forward, and the man apologized and said, sorry, I thought it was Enang. And the boy said, no, it's not him. And that was it for me. I escaped. I didn't know that Federal Ministry of Education, they had sent a copy of the suspension letter to the federal ministry. That was the letter that met Peko and I when we went to. So the woman now said she will not send us to the same place to retake our A-levels. She sent Peko to Sokoto and sent me to Suleja. That's how I found myself in Suleja, FSS Suleja, to retake my A-levels. And Peko went to Sokoto. The rest is history. This time around, got to Suleja. That was another life entirely. You know, big boy things now. You get there. By the time I got to Suleja, it was like all the boys there, these are juniors now. You know, you would always feel like a senior. And I had these crazy boys, Ayo, Santu, and these guys were crazy guys in my block. They were not going to class. And me now, being a big boy, I was coming to retake. What's new? Well, I go to class when I want to. I now started what I never used to do, which was in Sansa. I'll just sleep in the hostel. Then my guys then of my block, most of them were taking weed. And the sign when you're walking around and we need to call each other and know where you are, they used to sing the song like from a whistle. I never tried it before. I was not interested. I never tried weed at all throughout. But these guys were smoking weed. And I asked myself one day, come, you're supposed to come to school. But by the way, I must say that my parents did not pay for that. I paid from the money I earned from working at Ministry of Defense. I paid my ticket to Abuja, was 54 Naira, Nigeria Airways, I remember, one way, return flight. So I paid my ticket, I paid my school fees, and I went there because I got the admission myself. My father tried to look for me. I didn't even mind him because I was very upset. Little did I know that my world was being framed for me to understand that there's need for process. So I went through that again and I almost goofed. This time, because I didn't hit, when it was time for mock exams, the teacher said I had not satisfied a certain quota. And so I found myself, he said I would not take the mock exams. So I went to the teacher and I said, you know, I agree that I didn't make the 75% cutoff or whatever it was, but I was just tired. I was frustrated because, I don't know, I was just fed up with myself saying, what the hell? I mean, why would life treat me? So I began to feel I didn't have friends. You know, these were all acquaintances. That's why, you know, sometimes a support structure is very key. I was far away from my parents. We would go, again, we went for party in Abuja. That was FCDA those days. And what really brought life to me was we went into FCDA for a party at night. And as we were going back, some soldiers pursued us and we had to climb the fence. Kai, they caught all of us and they said, one guy, I remember I said, Musa Kao Bulala. And when he got the Bulala, I wanted to Bulala us, boys take off. I said, guys, are you still waiting? And I said, everybody split. When you hear split, don't go in one direction. We took different ways. How I got back to school, I just went to the man and I said, you know what? I'm tired of just this rocking life. That if you give me one opportunity, I will not. And I promise, I'll be serious with my studies after the mock exams. So I came out, then I made my 3 papers, but I couldn't use it because just sitting back there, I found myself, you know, going to University of Cross River State, and then I didn't take JAM. But I had to, something just needed to tell me, your boy, calm down. And I think that was the point of my life that I reflected. And I said, this was not the right pathway. To University of Cross River State, my cousin, Dr. Enang, got me admission, but then I didn't take JAM, so I couldn't get in. And they had a remedial program. And so I got in there and I blasted the whole thing. And they gave me, in order to give me a course, they now gave me a religion. They said because I had economics, government, and religious studies, you know, I had CCD. Those were my scores. I had 8 points. And I said, and I didn't do A-levels, you know. I did A-levels, but I didn't take the JAM. You know, there's a different path through direct entry and then through JAM, yeah. And so this was not direct entry, so they said no, that I should. And I imagine myself with a cassock. How can I be? No. I went back and I said, I wouldn't do it. I told my cousin, I said, I wouldn't do it. And I said, doesn't he know the economics, the head of department? He should take me to the economics by virtue of his reputation as a doctor in the clinic there. And I want to sign a pact with the man. And he looked at me and said, you want to sign a pact with who? I said, let him just take me before the head of the department, that I'll say something to him. So we got there, Dr. Oborudum was his name. He looked at me and said, what are you coming to do here? You can't study economics. I said, sir, give me a chance. If after the first year, I do not have what you require, I would leave and I'll go back to religion. And I said, I will sign it. And I promise him. The man said, he looked at my cousin and said, I like the confidence of this young man. I will give him a chance in economics. And I went to economics department. That first semester, I was 4.6. I had only one C. I smashed and one B. The rest were A's. Second semester, same thing. I was on the faculty honor roll. First year, second year, third year, I was on honor roll throughout. And in the third year, I was ill during the second semester, so I dropped some points. But I missed, making a first class by whiskers. I think my GPA then was just about 0.02 or 3 points, marks away from first class. And my school was very strict. They didn't bypass it to say you should get first class. So I made a second class upper and in economics. And here I was, looking back, many people didn't believe it because we're always rocking, of course. We'll go for parties. I was never in the hostel. I lived in my own place with my brothers. We had Big Brother house, stayed in an apartment, and we were there. All my friends were two, Ubong, Iman, Tivolt. It was a 5-bedroom flat. And it was at that point, a lot of people didn't believe at the point we were being asked to, at the convocation, I won 3 university prizes. Best graduating student, development economics, second best graduating student in the faculty, and best graduating student. And then it was monetary, 120 naira, 150 naira, and then there was another 130. So I had about 400 or so naira given to me, and I went back home and I gave it to my father. Was there, and he gave me a goat. The goat he gave me was this high, just trying to exaggerate to make the point. He gave me a goat, and the boys and we had barbecues. But I think that was a turning point in my life. And
Idy, I don't want you to leave that place. So what you've just said, is a pointer to the fact that there is hope.
Yeah.
For some guys now just wasting away their lives, maybe in secondary school or even in their life is not just falling in line, not because they are not brilliant, but due to peer pressure.
Yeah.
So that means there is hope for them. Or what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, there is. But you need to, that hope is there. It's like a balloon. It's like an ecosystem, just like the country Nigeria. I'm very hopeful. Nigeria is of hope. But you know what? You need to come to yourself. You must come to yourself and say, listen, you know what? Enough is enough. I need to plug into a different line. If you are not able to do that and you don't have the support structure, meaning friends that will help you. In my own case, I had good friends, but it was just peer influence. We're just having fun. Being exposed to life, we're living like campus from FSS, university. You go for lectures. And one thing I would say, I used to smoke, and that one too carried me into my best friend, Otu Moran. He started smoking when we went for common entrance sticks like this. I hold the thing, and I didn't. Later, I joined him. But by the time he graduated in '88, and I went to see him, and we went. He was serving at Maritime College, at VI, Nigerian Maritime Authority, VI. We went to one Malam. You know, it's Malams that always have. He collected my own Rotmans and he passed it to me, and he was holding his Benson. And when he passed me the Rotmans, oh, where I go? I didn't take anything. I said, what happened? I said, I don't stop. He said, what happened? I don't do it again. And he just dropped his own. That was how my friend stopped smoking.
Wow.
That was how I walked away from smoking, and I never looked back from 1988. So there's a place for the personal will. Even if, you know, taking the history of that background and then knowing the son of whose father you are, my father, hey, that's what's going on. That man, when you hear the horn of his car from a corner, you must get to him before him, and he will just touch. He doesn't. You said, be deceiving yourself. And when he decides to descend on me, the world will know that my father has arrived. So some of those little things, I needed it to grow up and try it. And at the end of the day, it is just something that you realize that there's a way that seems right to a man. The end to it is destruction. So, which is one of the things I always tell the young ones now. When I look at them, I say, you think you're Harari, forget it. So many of us have gone through that pipe, go pay. But you know, just like when we were in Baptist Academy, there were some notorious boys that, but most of them, the real notorious Danjukus, like Danjuku, they're no more. Most of them are not, because they continue on that streak, and today they are no more. And that's why, you know, we must always retract. You must retract forward. Just go back, get into yourself and say, launch forward. And that is what has helped me. And then getting into corporate was a different ballgame entirely. See, this thing is real. You see, tribalism and all those things we talk about in this country is real. Unfortunately, we believe the lie too much. But I'm privileged. First and foremost, I don't see any tribe. I don't know any tribe. I was born, bred, mayonnaise, jammed and buttered in Lagos at Island Maternity. And frankly speaking, I've lived, my aunt used to live in the north, so I was spending time in Kaduna most times. My Hausa was pretty picking up before, you know, but where am I heading? You find that the average person in Lagos here, or the average Yoruba man or woman that has not crossed over to that side, meaning the Midwest, East, Southeast, just hears stories and says, our Calabar, are genuine. Yes, we are. Air Force, we fly with Air Force One. They will call all kinds of names. My wife is from Edo. I didn't marry from Akwa Ibom. But even when I got there, I remember Uncle Nico, the man they took me to introduce, introductions, those early stages. He said, Calabar, Calabar, say, The man said, Ifa. And me, I be not scope all of them for this. They don't give me gist. My wife don't give me gist about some of the uncle. These are uncle. Uncle Nico, I work with Guinness. The man said, you work with Guinness? Hey, there's somebody in my in-law. You're my in-law. Straight. And I just deliver one case of Guinness straight. The man straight, he forgets I come from Calabar. But that tells you that whatever it was just a facade. And today, I can tell you that there couldn't have been a better place to have gone to, because it was ordained. So we are after each other, now getting into corporate. You then find out at Guinness. I got into Guinness through a very stringent process. We're over 4,000 in my set that took exams at Yabatech. But at the end, only 11 of us went in my set for management trainees. We're 11 management trainee marketing. And I joined Guinness. I didn't know a soul in Guinness. Who was I? I didn't have any clue. But it wasn't really about tribe. It wasn't about tongue. They just wanted a couple of boys with brains. And we were all there. We got in. The girls were all there in technical. I think Chisoba and Co. is set before us. But when you now get in, you now begin to see all those innuendos play. They'll say, and I got in, I didn't have any godfathers. Truly. But I had seniors and bosses like Ekunife Okoli, Ibrahim Dauda, Akin Ayeleka, who didn't see tribe. They were just a bundle of joy of professionals that just wanted to groom boys to become men. And so where did I see this coloration? You see, part of that coloration comes from the people that are ahead of you. There are many people in corporate Nigeria today who just when I got into Cadbury, my team was 140. 128 were from Southwest. Only 12, the rest of the country. And so coming in as commercial director, people were jittery, especially when I said I wanted to do assessment. They say, Baboy. They didn't know that I understood Yoruba. I just kept it to myself. And there was something they didn't say. Me, I just kept quiet. But at the end, the sincerity of where I was going and the grace and call of God upon my life became manifest because we worked as a team. And they just look at Amo Calabar. How would a Calabar boy, listen, that's a story for another day, now become an MD or commercial director? But the truth about it is that if you know your onions, they that know their God will not just be firm, those great exploits greater than I. And I'm telling you, when I wrote In the Grip of Grace, I didn't just write it because it took God's grace. I missed tribal things, sentiments. How many times when I worked at the Coca-Cola company, I was at Coca-Cola all the way through, you will sit down and you will hear all kinds of comments and people are saying, why? And look at the stream in which we pass it on. It is passed on from generation to generation. Some don't even know anything. They've never been to my part of the country or been to the north. They'll say, Hausa, why? It all happens because you have the wrong people ahead of you and you have the very wrongest of people around you, and they begin to influence you. They infuse you with bad talk. And when you start relating with people, you think, this guy, there's a mindset, there's a stereotype. Every time I speak, I tell people, Nollywood is still the same Nollywood, no matter how technologically vast they are. The day they make a Calabar man, to show a Calabar man as managing director or someone as at the top, then I know they've changed. Their mindset is still the same. It has to be a cook, an akban. Okay, I don't take the thing, come, everybody will like it. But turn to jesters. I don't mind it because I'm not. Yes, we are servants, but now we are servant leaders. I'm glad to stand and say I'm first and foremost, I'm from Ikodokwane. I'm proud to be an Akwa Ibom man. And I'm telling you, these are the things that I've been able to get into my skin and top that I'll remain. When you get into that kind of stage where they look at you and, it's been God all the way, that I was working so hard that no one could actually say it's because of where I come from, they'll deny me. Rather, they were looking for me. They were looking for, they'll tell me, ID, I need ID. So even if they're doing X, Y, Z, I will get promoted. I will get pushed. I didn't have any godfather. All true. No man can stand up today and say, I made ID what he is today, God forbid. However, I stood on the shoulders of some giants who were like mentors, and I saw the way they comported themselves like Ekunife Okoli and co. But what would I do with the generation after me? Is to let them know that, listen, anyone can call you any name. It's just a label. When you remove the label, the drink is inside. It's the content that drives, not the container. It's the content that brings value. So you have a bottle of Coke. When you take it, it's called deep down refreshment for the body, mind, and spirit. When you drink a bottle of Coke at 5 degrees, you will get it and you're thirsty. You get to a point you say, you can't beat that feeling. It's about you, the individual. That's why it is Coke. Coca-Cola is it. You will then know that this is ID. The content I'm going to spill to you this is what I have. And if you want it, I'll give you the value. So when Samsung came to me and said they wanted to hire me where I was sitting, I looked at them, I said, I'm a big fish. You can't come and be telling me, send me offer letter on one page. We'll give you 1,000%. I said, go away. They continued. I didn't answer them. I said, if you are serious, they took me to Korea, business class. I enjoyed the journey. They took care of me, 5-star hotel, everything. I came back. I said, I'm not interested. Give me a sign-on bonus. I had not signed the form. They gave me $100,000 as my sign-on. I said, they said what? I said $100,000 before I even think about how much they're going to pay me. MD of Samsung. That's this Calabar boy. And after that, I said, okay, I'll work for you. So I'm just saying that having gone through all of this, why should I then? My life is called to be a steward. And until we understand stewardship, we can't pivot, we can't pilot the ship that God has given to us. So there's a ship in everything. There's a ship with fellows, there's a ship with relations, and there's every ship, because every one of us is mandated to lead, and you have to lead from within. But if that content is contaminated, that's where corruption is. So when we talk about corruption, it's not that twatwa, 5 naira here, 5 naira there. No, it's the contamination of the spirit, the content. Because out of it, you know, the Bible says we should guard our heart, proceeds the issues of life. And that's key for me.
All right. We're running out of time. I'm helping you to check time because I know you have another meeting. Now, you've spoken so much about content. And I want to assume that you're talking about values. You're talking about those things that you have instilled into yourself that stood you out anywhere you go, from Guinness to Coca-Cola, from Coca-Cola to Cadbury, from Cadbury to Samsung, from Samsung to that French company. So do you want to highlight more on that content?
Yeah, Kola, thank you. I think the way I'll put it, and I'm mindful here, I'll take it within the context of Ila Alasepo. It's a mix of vegetables, it's a mix of, and depending on how, if your cuisine palette is very fashionable, like we have in my own part of the world, where we have one of the best cuisines in the country is in soups, you'll find that Ila Alasepo brings the mix of the into it. The base of it is the values. And your values will now form into a character. There is no way, you know, they are going to call you and you determine that when they call your name must stand for something. And standing for something means you believe in something. So if you don't believe in something, then you are not yet on that path. You've not taken on the process. So I'm taking that at every step of the way. It guides the kind of friends you have. Listen, the kind of friends I had growing up, many of my friends growing up, we can't relate now because the value equation is not the same. But I will not throw you away. But the point is, you may not come to my house. Even when I'm having a party, I'm not having my party inviting the who is who. I'm inviting those that are be intentional about it. Because the reality is, if you know that opening up myself will bring me into those things that are that will expose me to those areas, then I have to just find a way to guard it. So what are those things? The content, knowledge, your knowledge. I listen, Kola, I started whilst in the university studying economics. My mom will send me 10 naira. She'll see someone coming to you. She'll just put it, wherever she say, you're going to, will you please give my son this? And there was a place we used to buy food, manna, 1 naira a plate. I couldn't afford to go and eat 2 naira, 250, those rice and beans, and just eat beans without. Then you now drink gari and then you top it. Top to 101, sometimes 001, it depends on the economics. But I'll make sure I buy a book. I was always buying a book every month. My library was rich as an economics student. And today, wherever I travel to, I always buy a book. So apart from my study at home, my office, I have libraries everywhere. Not that I've read all the books, but knowledge. When you seek knowledge, and then in the process of seeking knowledge, the knowledge of God is one that everyone must seek. I forgot to tell you one thing. That content is also coming from principles. I said that at the beginning. Remember, we get principles from different sources. Parents, first one. My father said to me, I must always, then growing up, read a chapter of the book of Proverbs every day. In 1 month, I would have finished the book of Proverbs. He said, if you read this every month for 1 year, wisdom will just live with you. And go and read the opening of Proverbs. It tells you how to navigate life. So imagine if you have that embedded in you. That knowledge gives you a perspective, and the perspective will grant you a conviction. A conviction is far more superior. That's why the likes of Paul will talk about it, because they've encountered it, they've experienced it. So when you have a conviction, it's not possible. You see, it's the grace of God. I stand here before God who will judge the quick and the dead. I have coveted no man's gold, no man's silver, no man's bronze. I am what I am by the grace of God. I can say it. I read it in the Bible, and I can say it because I made a value decision that I will not corrupt myself in the course of my corporate life or anywhere. You can't buy me with money by the grace of God. And so I had rights to customers, to everybody, but not one man living or dead can tell you, Idy and I did this deal, and we did this in this. I say it publicly all the time, and I say it anywhere. If you have any record of it, please bring it, expose me, put it anywhere. I'm not telling you I'm perfect, but this is one thing I know, that this part where there's grace, I'm not so good. I said, roses have thorns. As a man, I've also made some indiscretion, what do you call it? When you add discretion, I made some errors. And some of those errors would have landed me in the wrong place, but God helped me, and I got myself back. No, I'm not saying I'm superhuman. But when you are able to guard your heart and guard those areas you know, and have the right people, I beg. And then you have people that have been there that will mentor you, that will coach you. It's not an accident that I have the kind of privilege of that. See, Kola, I joined the then Lateran Assembly with Pastor Bakari in 1992. I'm still sitting under the ministry of Pastor Bakari. I've known Pastor Bakari for that long. But I've seen one man that has challenged my life. There are two men on this face of this earth. My father, first half, Pastor Bakari, second half, both of them, the entire half of my life. First half, my father. Second half, Pastor B. Then two of them together. Men of solid character and values. Sitting very close to a man that you just see that you sit in a certain normal churches that will tell you, oh, the man of God is doing this. Does not touch anything to do with the church funds or anything. In fact, when I tell people that in the last 10, 15 years I've been in church leadership, Pastor B does not run the church. People don't believe it. It's executive council. I used to sit there. I used to be on the executive council up until last year or 2 years ago for many years, where the guys, putting all those things, everything you see is a band of brothers and sisters that are putting, but the man just comes in by the grace of God, with the grace upon his life, bam, he preaches, and we have reviews. So when you see all of those things coming, how do you now run your own life? And how do you taper through? It's grace, and grace all the way. And Kola, I'm still on the journey. Honestly, I can tell you it's not easy. There are other parts to discuss. Maybe that's part 2 or part 3.
I think we need to have part 2. If not that you have another meeting, would actually have. I know you are rushing even a lot of things. So I think we would need to have part 2. We'll discuss when that is going to be, because I want you to talk more about values. I want you to talk more about, one of the things I found out about you, you're always seeking for the will of God in everything you do.
Yeah.
You understand? Should I go to Cadbury? Should I go to this? You had a lot of offers. Yeah. You were not looking at the monetary benefits. You were much more interested in the will of God. You understand? I think we need to come back when you don't have another meeting after now. And then I want you to talk about those things. How do you seek the face of God? How do you find out the will of God? How do you enter into your purpose in life? There are a lot of things we need to talk about.
Kola, I'll be more than happy to share, because this is how we will get it done. And the starting point is everybody on this platform. Listen, Saturday is a defining moment for us. It's about principles, friends. I'm not going there because my brother says you must vote for that man. No, I'm done. Do your own research. Let your spirit align with you, and then ask God, who would you God says he can give this thing, leadership, to anybody. Even the busiest of men, he will give the man to be. So it's not your business whether the man went to school, did not go, but is it the will of God for us? This country needs to turn around. And Kola, I'll be more than happy. I'm sure that we can always get together again. Always a pleasure. And to our friends that have come on, thank you so much. And apologies, I have another class to step. I'm actually going to school. I'm running a coaching course, and I have a test at 9 p.m. So going smart into a test now. I hope I will not be over-tested, but Kola, would always be a pleasure. I'll be glad for us to have this again. Once you fix the date, fix the time.
Yes, I think would agree on the date, and then it may be in 2 weeks' time. I'll get back to, I'll touch base with you and let's agree, Idy. But thank you so much. Thank you, Avi, for
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So
God
let me
bless you,
release
Kola,
you to
and
go
everyone.
have your test.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So everyone, I hope you've been able to pick one thing or the other from what Idy has shared. Is a man of wisdom. Is a man that God has really helped. He had been through the thick, he has been through the thin, he has been through it all, you know, and it's a man that God has helped to get to the highest point, even when it comes to career and the corporate ladder, you know. So I would really want him to still come back. I have another guest for next week. I would have tried to put him for next week. All right. And maybe when he comes back, he's going to tell us more about his book, In the Grip of Grace. He's a man helped by grace. Everywhere Idy had been, there had not been any, no connection per se. Is a man that would just walk up there, just like he said, he walked up to the Dean of Economics and he said, give me 1 year to prove. That's the way Idy had always been. That's the way we both were. I mean, we were in the same room in secondary school, and the way he was from then, now that we are in our 50s, that's the way it still is. The only difference is that God is now part of our lives, and is really, really changing a lot of things. All right, so thank you for joining us this week. It was a rushed one, but next week I have another guest. He's a very dear friend also. His name is Tokpe Adaramola. He's the General Secretary and the CEO of the Insurance Brokers Association. He's going to be my guest next week. He's a man that has also been through it all. Many people see him now and they envy him, not knowing the humble background that Tokpe Adaramola had. I mean, that he's been through. So he's going to be sharing his story with us next Thursday by God's grace and mercy. If you have not read Through It All, this is where we got the name of this program. Through It All is all about, it's a memoir of my many trials and triumph. If you have not read it, visit tia.com.ng and you can always get a copy. If you're on Instagram, I want you to subscribe to my channel if you've not, and click the notification bell also so that you can always know when new videos drop on my channel. All right, so till I come your way again next Thursday by His grace and mercy, stay blessed, keep moving close to God. Jesus Christ said, I am the vine, you are a branch in me. If you just need to abide in me, anyone that does not abide in me cannot amount to nothing, to anything rather. Without me, you can do nothing. That's what Jesus Christ said. So you need to move close to Jesus. If you don't know him, sincerely speaking, something is still missing in your life. Something is still missing. Before I gave my life to Christ, I was always saying, there's something, like I'll say to you about Otisumi, and I will try many things. That was still like that vacuum until the day I said, oh yeah, Jesus, I hand over. The vacuum was filled, and it made me to become who he wants me to be in life. So by his grace, I am who I am because I allowed Jesus into my life. So if you don't know him, I'm not talking religion. I'm talking about the whole essence of life, the whole reason why God created you. Jesus is the way, the truth, the life. You can't have access to God to know the reason he sent you into this world. Only by Jesus can you do that. So if you want to know more about Jesus, please feel free to send me a message. Anyhow you got to know this, send me a message and I can discuss with you. And if you want to give your life to him, I will gladly lead you to Jesus. All right. So thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate you. Enjoy your evening. Let's keep praying towards Saturday. The Lord is going to give us a man after his own heart as leader over this nation. I know we have gotten to a point in this nation that we are like the children of Israel in the land of Egypt. And everybody now is crying to God. And Jesus Christ said, God told Moses, the cry of my people had gotten to me. And then he said, Moses, go and tell Pharaoh, let my people go. So God is going to give us a Moses on Saturday. I trust so, that will lead us out of all these bondages and everything we find ourselves. So God bless you, everyone. Enjoy your evening. Bye. I appreciate you all.